The Baker's Cat by Joan Aiken. Once there was an old lady, Mrs. Jones, who lived with her cat, Mog. Mrs. Jones kept a baker's shop in a little tiny town at the bottom of a valley between two mountains. Every morning you could see Mrs. Jones' light twinkle on, long before all the other houses in the town, because she got up very early to bake loaves and buns and jam tarts and Welsh cakes. First thing in the morning, Mrs. Jones lit a big fire. Then she made dough out of flour and water and sugar and yeast. Then she put the dough into pans and set it in front of the fire to rise. Mog got up early too. He got up to catch mice. When he had chased all the mice out of the bakery, he wanted to sit in front of the warm fire. But Mrs. Jones wouldn't let him because of the loaves and buns there rising in their pans. She said, "Don't sit on the buns, Mog." The buns were rising nicely. They were getting fine and big. That is what yeast does. It makes bread and buns and cakes swell up and get bigger and bigger. As Mog was not allowed to sit by the fire, he went to play in the sink. Most cats hate water, but Mog didn't. He loved it. He liked to sit by the tap, hitting the drops with his paw as they fell and getting water all over his whiskers. What did Mog look like? His back and his sides, and his legs down as far as where his socks would have come to, and his face and ears and his tail were all marmalade colored. His stomach and his waistcoat and his paws were white, and he had a white tassel at the tip of his tail, white fringes to his ears, and white whiskers. The water made his marmalade fur go almost fox color, and his paws and waistcoat shining white clean. But Mrs. Jones said, "Mog, you are getting too excited. You are shaking water all over my pans of buns, just when they are getting nice and big. Run along and play outside." Mog was affronted. He put his ears and tail down. When cats are pleased, they put their ears and tails up, and he went out. It was raining hard. A rushing rocky river ran through the middle of the town. Mog went and sat in the water and looked for fish. But there were no fish in that part of the river. Mog got wetter and wetter, but he didn't care. Presently he began to sneeze. Then Mrs. Jones opened her door and called, "Mog, I have put the buns in the oven. You can come in now and sit by the fire." Mog was so wet that he was shiny all over as if he had been polished. As he sat by the fire, he sneezed 9 times. Mrs. Jones said, "Oh dear, Mog, are you catching a cold?" She dried him with a towel and gave him some warm milk with yeast in it. Yeast is good for people when they are poorly. Then she left him sitting in front of the fire and began making jam tarts. When she had put the tarts in the oven, she went out shopping, taking her umbrella. But what do you think was happening to Mog? The yeast was making him rise. As he sat dozing in front of the lovely warm fire, he was growing bigger and bigger. First he grew as big as a sheep. Then he grew as big as a donkey. Then he grew as big as a cart horse. Then he grew as big as a hippopotamus. By now he was too big for Mrs. Jones's little kitchen, but he was far too big to get through the door. He just burst the walls. When Mrs. Jones came home with her shopping bag and her umbrella, she cried out, "Mercy me! What is happening to my house?" The whole house was bulging. It was swaying. Huge whiskers were poking out of the kitchen window. A marmalade-colored paw came out of one bedroom window and an ear with a white fringe out of the other. "Row," said Mog. He was waking up from his nap and trying to stretch. Then the whole house fell down. "Oh, Mog, cried Mrs. Jones. "Look what you've done." The people in the town were very astonished when they saw what had happened. They gave Mrs. Jones the town hall to live in because they were so fond of her and her buns. But they were not so sure about Mog. The mayor said, "Suppose he goes on growing and breaks our town hall? Suppose he turns fierce? It would not be safe to have him in the town. He is too big." Mrs. Jones said, "Mog is a gentle cat. He would not hurt anybody." "We will wait and see about that," said the mayor. "Suppose he sat down on someone? Suppose he was hungry? What will he eat? He had better live outside the town, up on the mountain." So everybody shouted, "Shoo! Scram! Psst! Shoo!" and poor Mog was driven outside the town gates. It was still raining hard. Water was rushing down the mountains. Not that Mog cared. But poor Mrs. Jones was very sad. She began making a new lot of loaves and buns in the town hall, crying into them so much that the dough was too wet and very salty. Mog walked up the valley between the two mountains. By now he was bigger than an elephant, almost as big as a whale. When the sheep on the mountain saw him coming, they were scared to death and galloped away. But he took no notice of them. He was looking for fish in the river. He caught lots of fish. He was having a fine time. By now it had been raining for so long that Mog heard a loud watery roar at the top of the valley. He saw a huge wall of water coming towards him. The river was beginning to flood as more and more rainwater poured down into it off the mountains. Mog thought, "If I don't stop that water, all these fine fish will be washed away." So he sat down plump in the middle of the valley, and he spread himself out like a big fat cottage loaf. The water could not get by. The people in the town had heard the roar of the floodwater. They were very frightened. The mayor shouted, "Run up the mountains before the water gets to the town, or we shall all be drowned." So they all rushed up the mountains, some on one side of the town, some on the other. What did they see then? Why, Mog sitting in the middle of the valley. Beyond him was a great lake. "Mrs. Jones," said the mayor, "can you make your cat stay there till we have built a dam across the valley to keep all that water back?" "I will try," said Mrs. Jones. "He mostly sits still if he is tickled under his chin." So for 3 days everybody in the town took turns tickling Mog under his chin with hay rakes. He purred and purred and purred. His purring made big waves roll right across the lake of floodwater. All this time the best builders were making a great dam across the valley. People brought Mog all sorts of nice things to eat, too. Bowls of cream and condensed milk, liver and bacon, sardines, even chocolate. But he was not very hungry. He had eaten so much fish. On the 3rd day they finished the dam. The town was safe. The mayor said, "I can see now that Mog is a gentle cat. He can live in the town hall with you, Mrs. Jones. Here is a badge for him to wear." The badge was on a silver chain to go round his neck. It said, "Mog saved our town." So Mrs. Jones and Mog lived happily ever after in the town hall. If you should go to the little town of Carnmog, you may see the policeman holding up the traffic while Mog walks through the streets on his way to catch fish in the lake for breakfast. His tail waves above the houses and his whiskers rattle against the upstairs windows. But people know he will not hurt them because he is a gentle cat. He loves to play in the lake, and sometimes he gets so wet that he sneezes. But Mrs. Jones is not going to give him any more yeast. He is quite big enough already.